I have the delightful chance to end today's, in the last 2 days, Kingpins 24, with two amazing companies, two people from amazing companies. And I couldn't end on a better note, happier note, great companies. I have Nikki and Sedef here. So if you both don't mind introducing yourself, telling us about your companies and telling us what you do, and then we can get right rolling into the questions that I've got for you.
Hi, I'm Sedef. I work at Orta. Orta is a renowned denim manufacturing fabric manufacturer. We have founded in 1953, so we've been in this business for more than 65 years. So I am the Director of Sales, Marketing, Sustainability, R&D. And today's topic is really interesting to talk about, so I'm really excited to be with you here. Thank you.
I'm Nikki. I do the material sourcing and development, which goes hand in hand with sustainability at Everlane. And we are a primarily direct-to-consumer business in the San Francisco Bay Area.
Thank you. Sedef, I was born in 54. So your company,
1 year older.
yeah, my company's 1 year older than me. So let's start off.
You also have a lot of experience. You also have a lot of experience in denim. Let's put it that way.
Nikki, you've been to their factory. You see all the trees.
I have. It's beautiful. It's obviously very well established inside and out.
Right. So I always wonder how old those trees are. If they're from 53 as well.
Yeah, we named them. We have really a logo of all the trees in the factory in our archive right now.
Okay, let's start off this way. Let's talk about transparency. What do you both think it's going to look like 2 to 5 years from now compared to what it is today? If you don't mind, also talk a little bit about what today's like.
Well, let me start. I see really 2 steps here. Like the first step actually kind of like explaining what's happening today. Brands have been asking the transparency, the traceability information, and what actions we're taking to improve it for many years. And manufacturers are sharing the data. Of course, from manufacturer to manufacturer, the data sharing most probably changes, but we are used to it. And what is really challenging here is really communicating this data to the consumer for the brands. That's what we are thinking. Maybe Nikki can elaborate on that. But what's happening is, since brands doesn't have one single source to supply, let's say a denim fabric from, it's always difficult to compare one data coming from a single source to another. So it's really a challenge. So what brands are asking right now is, what are the tier 1, tier 2 suppliers, the sources? Or they say, okay, some specific companies or countries, some specific raw materials or chemicals are banned, etc. Those are the terms that we are talking about right now. And here, what we're thinking is the first step comes as collaboration, because it's really important to collaborate with the brands in that sense, in transparency. At Orta, it's one of our key elements in our philosophy. And from day one, we are saying to our customers that you can come and visit our factory, you can have a look inside our operations, ask questions about the detail of the processes and also the data. And it's really, I'm really excited and happy to be here with Nikki from Everlane, because she made a visit to our factory. She asked a lot of questions and we were really happy to answer all the questions. We shared the information of our organic cotton to the field. And also we shared a specific product LCA, life cycle assessment data for the products that they are now planning to buy. And so they communicate, most probably Nikki will also say, these informations on their website, saying that this product, we have used less water in dyeing technique, less water indigo dyeing technique called indigo flow, and organic cotton from Turkey, kind of information they shared in their website. So this is a great collaboration, an example for transparency, and really this will increase, and we see the examples today. the collaboration with the manufacturers, with farmers, with designers, even to educate the consumer, will continue to increase. But as a next step, since you've asked about the 5 years here, we are really into 100% transparency in our total supply chain. And to be comparable or to set a minimum requirement, minimum standard of what we are doing so far, we really need to quantify what we're doing. So here, I think the life cycle assessment tool should be the second step going forward. Because that way, you can see how the total supply chain is behaving, and you can specifically see the product data related to the all steps that the product is going through in the process. So it's important to really have that bigger picture and even compare this scientific performance data from one supplier to another, or from one product group to another. This will definitely create a higher transparency, since now you're talking about an information, a data at the product level. So to sum up, what I see, or what I would like to see in the 5 years, is actually, I should say, the transparency needs to be a science-based collaboration with data going forward.
Cool. Nikki.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think for us, transparency is kind of the first step in building an honest supply chain. And it's the foundation that you can then build the partnerships and layer on the protocol kind of throughout the production. And it gives you that ability to build in whether it's social or environmental sustainability throughout. Of course, my dream in 5 years is that talking about transparency isn't leading the industry anymore. It's kind of like a requirement, like a materials detail sheet is, kind of to your point of it being based in science. We love the idea of each fabric coming with its own almost like spec sheet of here's what it does for the environment and here's what it does for social implications from the farm through to leaving the mill, and for each mill to have the partnership of the brands to support gathering that information just kind of as due course in product development. I'm sure that's a lofty dream for 5 years, but I love the thought of pushing the industry towards that. And I think, you know, without true transparency and traceability, we really won't get there.
I don't think it's lofty at all. I think it's completely reasonable.
I hope not.
Anyone who listens to it should not be purchased from. That's what I think.
Yeah.
Moving on, for Everlane, what is your criteria for garment vendors, and what is the difference between a garment vendor for you and a fabric vendor when you're setting criteria?
Sure. I mean, we approach our partnerships with the same kind of rough criteria. We really look for suppliers that want to make long-term partnerships with us, and that really come from a place of sharing a similar set of values. So, you know, the values we look for are transparency, we look for really high levels of social compliance, innovation, and a commitment to environmental sustainability. We definitely have more formalized protocol around auditing, specifically within social compliance and quality at our factories right now than with our mills. But that's something that I'm personally really excited to change. I think it's a lot easier for the industry to have more robust protocol around factories than mills, because most brands tend to have a lot less factories and are more used to making long-term partnerships, where I think the industry for a long time has seen mills and fabrics as kind of the easiest trigger to pull when needing better costing. So historically, it's a lot easier to make commitments to your garment manufacturers and not make commitments to your mills. And I think that's where we see so much opportunity in really shifting how the industry works. So when brands are making long-term commitments to mills and hopefully to farms and raw material suppliers, then it's really allowing everyone in the supply chain to know that there's going to be that partnership and source of income, and then be able to invest that money back into creating real change within their organization. So to get back to your question, right now we are working on transparency mapping with our tier 2, and that's why Orta has been fielding so many of my questions, along with all of our other mills. We are really trying to make sure that we understand who we're buying from, and what they place importance on, to set a baseline and then work together to kind of set growth plans, both for us as a brand and then with the mills that we work with. And, we're asking all sorts of questions, from what is the business structure of the mill? What language do the employees speak? Have you done social audits before? Through to what sort of environmental certifications do you have? What are your long-term plans for both social and environmental compliance? And what are your steps to get there, and to see where those synergies are, and then also to see where we can learn from our suppliers, and then maybe where we think there's opportunity to help guide our suppliers.
Thank you. That's a great answer. The next question I have is for Sedef about her raw materials. How do you handle your raw materials and transparency in your raw material stage?
Well, since the raw material is really important in our overall environmental impact, around 60% of the impact comes from it, it's really critical to really manage the raw material. The main raw material for us is, of course, cotton. And we are a part of ICA, and we're following really, we value the contract sanctity and safe trading practices in that sense. We are managing it at a director level, let me put it that way, in our company as well. And as Nikki said about the suppliers, we are also doing this based on long-term relationship. We're not switching like from supplier to supplier. We definitely have a very long-term relationship. And actually, I definitely want to read it, because here I said, we work with both customers and suppliers that share our vision on both environmental and social subjects. So it's really nice to speak the same wording with Nikki here. But basically, both for cotton and also for other raw materials, we have a transparency system based on certifications mainly, as of now.
To use like GOTS, or use that kind of process?
Yeah, all the GRS, all the certificates we can supply. And even for like the brands, let's say from the supplier names, the name tags we can supply. What's happening is actually we're sending it to testing, let's say this % of recycled polyester or this % of something in it, and they verify it, and they give you the labeling and the certification system all of you are aware of. So we have almost all the certificates right now.
Okay. And certifications to you, how do you see certifications? I mean, I know we all know what certifications are, but how do you see them?
Well, technically speaking, brands need a third party to verify what's happening in-house, but it's really getting out of control, because there are a lot of certificates around, and it's so hard also for us to really concentrate which part or which is asking which. I wish there should be one certificate that can prove that you're doing everything right, but this is just a dream.
I feel like all of us are working for the certification companies.
Yeah, it's a lot of paperwork as well. We're hiring people in-house to really provide the information that the certification companies ask for. And we are changing our system in-house in terms of productivity. This also may create some burden for us as well. So yeah, just for the sake of a third company audit, I see them, but we are not happy about the number of certificates so far.
Back to Nikki. Nikki, how has COVID affected Everlane? What is the short-term and longer-term pain that you guys have had to suffer, like we all have?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely don't think COVID was anything anyone was prepared for, especially in the industry, and we certainly were not. I think, we're a relatively young brand. We're not a startup anymore, but being a smaller team, a digital first brand, again, we have a relatively small store footprint. We're not involved in wholesale. All of that allowed us to be a little bit more nimble in our reaction in the short term, when so much of it is really focusing on inventory management. I think for us in the long term, we really see this as an opportunity to double down on our core values and to recommit to producing quality ethical basics at high value. We really think more than ever, offering fewer, better things made with a commitment to both people and the planet is going to resonate with the consumer, and it's just the right way for a business to survive. We've been really lucky in that we have not had to completely shut down production. We really want to partner with our mills and our factories as much as we can through all of this to make sure that all of our livelihoods and our businesses stay intact. But it's been such a learning process, and one that I didn't ever know I would take on. And there's been a lot of really difficult conversations, but I think end of the day, we just feel that it's very important to protect our partnerships and to do everything we can to respect those that have been made to us.
Thank you. All right, last question for both of you. I'm going to give you guys a magic wand, put it in both of your hands. And the question I asked with your wand is, can you do, what would it be if you could do anything you wanted to the denim sector? What would you do to it? We'll start with Nikki.
I feel like I sound like a bit of a broken record, but I think really just making more long-term commitments and more commitments to understanding the impacts that kind of smaller changes in the denim manufacture can make. I think sometimes brands really lean into those easier to tell, almost sexy stories. And then that can turn into kind of in and out collections. Don't get me wrong, I think everything done is a step in the right direction. But I think, and this is a challenge to myself too, how can we as an industry, and I think brands have a really loud voice for this, figure out how to tell those stories that maybe the consumer doesn't have the framework at their fingertips for. How do you tell a really interesting story about chemicals in a way that resonates? I would love to see all of us really commit to making long-term change and chip away at it, because that's where I think we'll really start to see big shifts.
Okay, Sedef.
Interestingly, my answer to this question is really similar to Nikki, from another point of view maybe, but we talked about sustainability, we talked about today transparency. Those are like really big topics, but what we're discussing in-house right now is the word innovation. And we're saying that we really would like to slow down innovation, because what's happening right now, every season, even between the seasons, the brands are asking, what's new? Show me the newness. What are you doing? Etc. And it's so sad to see that most of the things that you are doing as a company are getting lost in the middle somewhere. And most of them are not even like in the stores, you don't see them. And I see this also as a waste. So instead of asking what's new like every time, every season, I really would like to see in a bigger context or in a bigger picture, what big targets do companies have? And instead of jumping from one material to another, one process to another, really trying to focus what to do to be really better in that sense. For example, let's take the raw material. We're talking about the raw material. Instead of like having one capsule collection with 100% recycled cotton, just as a marketing tool, because we all know that 100% recycled cotton does not look that good in the stores, one can really think about having, let's say, 20% of recycled cotton. And do you know, in adding 20% recycled cotton content in a fabric, or like in a denim jean, saves 120 to 200 gallons of water, depending on the weight. And let's say if you are selling 1 million jeans, it will be 120 million gallons of water, which is really a huge number, just adding the recycled cotton into your overall mix. So that's why we need to have a look at the bigger picture and slowing down in every season. And we need to instead follow an innovative path to really create value to the customers. So the best innovation at Orta, we believe that is both technical and emotional. And we join our consumers in that sense to really, with the pushback on throwaway fashion of today. And we aim to be a part of the solution in fashion without waste in that sense. Because a great pair of jeans is an emotional badge and a reminder of good times. I repeated myself because I said the same sentence in the previous Kingpins online, but our eco-engineered denim in that sense stands by our commitment to make this feeling last in the consumers. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, thank you to both of you. I hope that this is the first time that Kingpins has done an interview with a supply chain, with a brand or a retailer and a mill, and I hope that almost all of them are like this in the future. So it's not just everybody on their own trying to shill for their companies. I love the idea of transparency and both partners being online. So I thank you both for being pioneers in the show for this. And I wish you all the best in the future. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.